Welcome to this edition of FYI for our listeners in New Mexico and Colorado. Joining me today is good friend, Mr. Greg Feynman, UOR Investigations. He has more interesting information to share with our listeners today in both states. Greg, welcome again to KCRT and FYI, sir.
Well, how you doing today, Eli?
Well, I'm doing really well. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
I hope the holidays treated you well. We survived that blizzard.
Yeah, it was good.
So let me ask you something, Greg. We've had numerous feedback in the last 5 interviews that we've done, dating back about a year and a half now, correct? Yeah, so you have some compelling, informative information for our listeners. I know you've spent a lot of time at the Miller Ranch East here in Trinidad, and tell us a little bit about, give us some updates now since our last interview a few months ago.
Well, one of the things I'd like to just re-edify or talk about again, if I haven't talked about it before, is why I believe what I believe. Because, I've said a lot of things, that I've experienced, but it's all because what I've witnessed. And I'm just repeating either what I've heard or what we've been told. Mm-hmm. It's not me, but there's been incidents that have happened that caused me to believe what I believe. When I say FITS, friends in the sky.
Friends in the sky. Mm-hmm.
They can manipulate clouds. And how I know this is I started, they compelled me to start reading the Bible. And it was how important it was. And so I was studying the Bible. I was really studying it hard. And I was reading in 2 Chronicles 6:1. And Solomon said, God said he would dwell in a dark cloud. And I get done reading that passage. And about a minute or two later, I go to the front door to have a cigarette. Back then I was smoking cigarettes. And I went to have a cigarette. And I open up the front door. And there, sticking out like a sore thumb, sits this dark cloud. Just sitting there. And I pulled out my camera or my cell phone and I started recording it. And that cloud changed color and density right on camera. And the whole time when I'm watching it, while I'm videoing it, what I'm getting from the back of my head, it's the only way I can explain it, from the back of my head coming forward was, that's us. That's us.
Well, I know because you showed me the video and you screenshot me a couple of the clouds that were almost identical. And I told you, those clouds don't fit there. They don't belong there.
No, and so the second cloud was like a year and a half later, 2 years later. I'm talking to my best friend, Don Arnold, who lives, I've known him since I was 5 years old. We've been friends ever since. And he lives in Lake County, California. Mm-hmm. And his house overlooks a lake, and it sits on a hill and overlooks a lake. And he has a deck out front, and he was out on in the front there on his porch talking to me on the phone. And during the conversation, I told him that Fitz had told me to tell him that they're going to start showing themselves to him in cloud formation. And I said, so I was going to tell him to keep an eye out. And he goes, Greg. Right now, right in front of me, a cloud formed directly in front of me as you said that. Let me take a photo of it real quick and I'll send it to you. And you could tell the shock in his eyes or in his voice. And he takes the photo and sends it to me. And man, if it wasn't a spitting image of that cloud I saw a year and a half later, but they can do that. I don't know how they do it. We do know, Mama Sue told us that when Fitz comes in to take the cows, the ship is about a 1/4 mile in length, and it comes in looking like a low-lying cloud. And what I do know about that area is it gets foggy out there where you can't even see your hand in front of your face, and that's when they're going down. They're going down when you can't see nothing, and they're going down within a few seconds in our time.
If you missed some of our last interviews, Mr. Greg Feynman, he is an ex-police officer and a medic, and he's had UOR investigations now how many years, Greg? You're the lead investigator.
Yeah. Since I started forming it in 2016.
Okay, so we're going on 8 years right now. So we don't call them cattle mutilations anymore, do we?
I call them UBDs.
UBDs.
I say cattle mutilations because everyone, but once talking to someone, I tell them, I call them UBDs for unusual bovine deaths.
So 8 years ago, did you ever think that you'd take a new career in the compelling, interesting, intriguing art of investigation?
Well, to be honest with you, no. I've always wanted to. I always wanted to investigate the cattle mutilation from the time I saw my first one. Mm-hmm. But, I didn't have the time or ability or anything. And then all of a sudden I now have all this time available, and I just was compelled to start working on it. And it was something that my life has been guided to. My life has been guided to doing this investigation.
And you do it well. I know in the past, some of our interviews, I know I asked you about your documentary, how that's coming, and we talked about missing persons cases in some of our previous interviews. So our listeners, if you remember from some of those interviews, Greg has a lot of credible, I guess you could say, evidence that proves a lot of his findings.
Well, yeah, we went out. When we were filming the documentary, and went out to the ranch, and it was so active out there that night. I mean, what I learned out there, because we were talking to a spirit out there at first, and then we started talking to Oma. What I didn't know is Oma, of course, I said that they're interdimensional beings, and they have the ability to manipulate our EMF meters and answer us through the EMF meters.
Well, they actually crashed some of your high sophisticated equipment as well.
I don't know who crashed it. I can't say. I wouldn't believe Fitz would do it.
No, Fitz, maybe some alien tribes.
But there's other things out there that aren't happy with what I'm doing. My SLS camera, I was filming with it the night of the documentary, and it went down. And I went to charge it up. I just thought it was the battery was dead, and it wouldn't turn on. So I had to pull it apart, and found that there was this wire that had been pulled from the soldering. And I don't know how that could have possibly happened, because I handled that camera with kit gloves, and I would, I had it setting on a tripod. There was nothing moving or nothing jarring it or nothing. So I don't know how all that happened, but I'm still not able to get my camera to work, even though I soldered it back in place. I can't get it to initialize.
So to stop some of your findings, was it coincidental when you hit the horse that night on the highway?
There's no coincidences. There's no coincidences. They told us long ago, or a few months before, that they were going to destroy my Jeep. Mm-hmm. And it took a while, because I don't really go very many places. Mm-hmm. And I was coming back from the ranch, and, those horses just appeared out in front of me. I had my low beams on. I had a vehicle that was coming towards me with their high beams on, so I was kind of looking to the side of the road. But by the time I realized a horse was in my view, I was going, is that a horse? By the time I said it, the horse was literally, the head was going through my windshield, and it went up along the side of my vehicle and off to the side. It didn't go through the windshield like it should have.
So, Greg, what's the correlation? I know, and I can't remember what interview it was, but you did state that the Fits, the Friends in the Sky, usually come when there's thunderstorms.
They do. They told the day that we got the lightning strike, that I got that lightning strike from them. Mama Sue was on her way down here, and we come with the storms. Mm-hmm. So...
And how was Mama Sue recovering? I know in our last interview, she was beaten up pretty good.
Yeah, she had surgery on her foot, and now in February, she's going to have surgery on her shoulders. She's got, she can't use her shoulders to the point where she can't even comb her hair or just do anything.
So for our listeners that know about reptilian tribes, Greg, give us a little condensed overview about what you know about the reptilian tribes.
It's not like I know tons about them, other than they hate me. They don't like me, and they're evil. They I don't know why they're against what I'm doing. Matter of fact, we asked them, why are you so angry with me? What have I done to you guys? And they said, it's not what you're doing now, it's what you're going to be doing. I don't know what that means, but that's what they're telling me. And I'm being protected by Fitz. I am being protected even to the point where I haven't gotten COVID.
Greg, are people still experiencing time loss? Because you made mention of that earlier in maybe our first or second interview about time loss.
I've had I've had my son and a close friend of mine who lives in Wyoming now. I think we discussed.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And both of them have had time loss, about a 6-hour time loss. And my son, not only did he go missing, but there was a witness to him not being there. A friend was supposed to be coming over to his house, and he was on the phone with him at the time, and he sat down on his couch to change his shoes, he said. I think to change his shoes or something. And the next thing he knew, it was a few hours later, and his friend never stopped by to wake him up or anything. So he called his friend and said, hey, how come he didn't come by? And his friend was mad at him, said he did come by, knocked on the door. Matter of fact, he even looked inside and opened the door, and there was no one here. And my son was sitting in a couch that is right by the front door, so he wouldn't have missed him. But he couldn't find him. And my son asked me, what do I think happened? And I said,
Well, the skepticism with the government, unfortunately, they don't believe any of this. But for our locals here that have a little bit of skepticism, what do you want to tell them?
Well, I could just say that, I went in this investigation in good faith to look into a phenomenon that occurs that no one knows what's going on with it. And I just wanted to do it in a different way. I wasn't trying to be better than anybody or I just wanted to, everyone was still scratching their heads. Even the ones that had been doing the cattle mutilations, and all they did is, I didn't say all they did, they would wait until the cow is killed and they go out and investigate what's done to the cow.
Now, you told me, though, that you surmise that a lot of the cattle have been hoisted, maybe to 30, 40, 50, 60 feet and then dropped.
Well,
is that why some of the cavities, the bones and ribs have been fractured?
They're not hoisted. They're picked up.
They're picked up.
And there's no evidence of any straps or anything being around them at all. And it would take a ground crew to do that.
Yeah.
And everything. And, but these are being lifted up and put on a ship. All right, and when they bring him back, they just dump it from however high they are, and usually it's about 30 feet. So Mama Sue said they come in down to about 30 feet from the ground, and that's when the light comes out from the bottom of the ship and fully encompasses the cow, and within a blink of an eye, the cow's gone and the ship's gone, everything's gone.
So do you believe that when all of the internal organs have been precisely extracted, then that occurs later on after
that occurs when it's on once it's on board. Mama Sue said once that cow's on board, they do this mad scientist stuff to it, and crazy stuff.
Now, Mama Sue is pretty much I wouldn't say a prophet, but she is
close. I mean, she's really close with God, and she's got a special ability. She doesn't call it being psychic because. A lot of people believe psychics aren't of God, and I'm not saying that, but that's just what the assumption is. But she is closer to God than anyone I know, and God told her why He gave her these abilities, and part of it was for this whole project.
And it seems like
her, we would have nothing.
Seems like she has a personal relationship with the Friends in the Sky as well.
Well, we all do right now.
Yeah.
We all do. Everyone that's involved.
You've also put out baskets of apples and fruit.
I've done that for Oma.
And they've taken them.
And they've taken them every time. Well, they didn't at first. And a friend of mine, Dan Lindholm with Big Truth, he lives in Oregon, and he's been involved in Sasquatch investigating for a long time, since he observed one. He saw one with his own eyes, and he said that it could take up to a couple of years before they start taking them. But because we were out communicating with them and talking to them and asking them, "Did you take the apples?" and they would say no. So then I would go into where the gifting basket was, and the apples that we had left were still there, but rotten, and I'd throw them away, and I'd put in new apples, and then we'd leave and come back saying, "Did you take the apples?" They'd say no. I'd go back in, I'd take the old apples, throw them away, and then the day that we show up, we ask them one day, "Did you take the apples?" And they didn't answer, and they didn't want to answer because they didn't want to hurt my feelings. Is what Sue said. And then they said, "But keep bringing the apples." So the next time we brought the apples out, we come back and we ask them, "Did you take the apples?" They said, "Yes, we did. Thank you. They were good." So I went into the gifting area where the basket is, and all those apples were gone. And that basket was sitting about 8.5 feet off the ground, kind of hanging like a Christmas ornament off a tree.
So I can testify to this because refresh our listeners' memories about the noise. You were in the house one night, and you had the pounding on the sides of the house, correct?
Yeah.
Tell our listeners a little bit more about that night.
Well, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and
I have the audio still.
yeah,
to that.
and all of a sudden I started getting this weird sound on the phone, really weird sound on the phone, something I've never heard before. And at the same time that was happening, my friend's bank account was getting hit by these crazy charges that don't even know where they came from. But they got hit right at the same exact time all that was happening. And as I was hearing that noise, the next thing I hear is this pounding all the way down the exterior of the outside of my house. And the thing is, my walls are concrete.
And nobody was outside.
Yeah, and I went I was really close to the window, so I looked right out immediately and looked out the window, and there was nothing. And I don't know how it made the sound that it made, because that sound you can't make because you're hitting concrete. They were hitting brick on the outside, or that's where it sounded where it came from, but it just seemed like it went all down the side of the house.
Do you believe some entity was trying to send you a sign?
I wish I knew.
Still haven't?
Mama Sue, now check this out. Mama Sue said one day she was pulling into her driveway, and her car, and on the top of her car, it sounded like someone was hitting the top of her hood really quick. Boom, 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 boom. And, there was no one. She was just looking right, there's no one that could have caused it. And she says that she feels it's a warning. I don't know what to, but it's a warning. And, we do know there's going to be an event, catastrophic that's going to happen. We don't know exactly when, but it's coming soon.
Greg, what can our listeners, look forward to your investigations in 2024? What is that going to lead you to?
Well, we're waiting for Mama Sue to recover. I'm still kind of recovering. And, there's a couple things that I'd like to do. I would like to actually, on the next bovine that is mutilated, I want to do a complete autopsy to prove some of my findings. And I've got to get a veterinarian that's willing to help, but I've also got to get my evidence room built, because I can't collect any evidence until I have a way to store it and where it's under 24-hour surveillance, and I can keep a chain of custody until it's tested, whatever it is.
How much has your findings consumed you over the last 8 years, spiritually, intellectually, mentally, physically, emotionally?
Oh, it's affected all that. Everything you've mentioned, it affected it all. Spiritually, they led me to God in a way that I should have been doing a long time ago. My life could have been way different. I would have made different choices if I would have just followed the word of God.
Right.
And that's what they're wanting everyone to do right now, because what's going to be happening is going to be catastrophic, and it's not going to save anyone from it. It's going to save everyone through it.
Is this the sign of the times, Greg? Is this the sign of the times right now?
It is. We are close. We are very, 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 very close. And they said right now, Fitz said, it's more important now to be a good person than ever. That God is not only going to judge you by your heart, but your belief in Christ. And for everyone he's not waiting for more people to keep sinning before Christ comes. He's waiting for the last few people to turn to him, because every person is important to Christ. Everyone.
What's the correlation with the UBDs in New Mexico and Colorado? It seems like there's more mutilations around this region than anywhere else in the United States.
I don't know why here.
San Luis Valley.
I don't know why
Northern
here.
New Mexico.
There's the theory that we're on the 37th parallel.
Mm-hmm. I've read that.
And that it's called the paranormal highway. That was a term coined that from, I believe, Chuck Sikowski. Mm-hmm. And all these crazy things happen on that parallel. I don't know why. I can tell you that there's a portal, that the portals are very important. And I don't know if they can be moved. I know they can be moved to place on a property, but it's really important to them. And they won't even let us see it. They're very protective over it. And so I won't even look for it. I've got equipment that can track down a portal, but they told us not to even play with it. It's not for us to mess with. They gave us this is not a toy speech, and said, it's not for you to know. We're doing it for your own good.
Well, we have 2 minutes, Greg, for our listeners in New Mexico. Very compelling, informative interview today, as always, the last 5. This is the 6th interview today in this series of UOR investigations. Greg, what do you want to leave our listeners with today besides you better find some spiritual guidance?
Well, that's it, man. The best thing I can tell anyone, the best I can do for anyone, is tell them to turn their life over to Christ. That's coming from Fitz. We should be telling Fitz about Christ, and they're leading me to where I'm at right now, and how important it is to develop a personal relationship with him before what happens. And
well, when you open yourself up to evil, evil will enter.
It's there. Satan is real, and I have proof of it. Mm-hmm. I have proof of it.
Well, Greg, it's always a pleasure to have you in the studio today. Appreciate you. We're at mid-January just about. So, well, we are at mid-January. In closing, any last thoughts? We have about a minute.
This has been a fluid investigation that's really never going to end until it's...
You're going to continue this.
Yeah. It's kind of a lifelong kind of thing. And so...
well, you're going to get back to us.
There's more stuff to come. Yeah, there's going to be more information to come. We're not anywhere close to being done, but we are getting close, to the end. So just everyone prepare. I'm not trying to scare. I'm trying to prepare. All right.
Great. God bless you. Always good to see you, and looking forward to seeing you in our next interview, our 7th interview.
That'd be great, man. I'd love to do it.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. Bye-bye.
This is Greg Feynman with UOR Investigations Paranormal. And you just got done listening to KCRT Radio Interview that I did on the 10th of January. And I was talking about a cloud that appeared out in front of my house, and how a very similar cloud appeared 1,100 miles away a couple years later in front of a friend that formed right in front of him while I had him on the phone. And I was telling him that Fitz was going to start showing themselves to him in cloud formation, and they did that second, and he saw it. So I got this other story regarding clouds. A friend of mine that lives in Wyoming calls me up, and this is right after me praying for him and his family. And he calls me and tells me that a cigar-shaped cloud has been resting on his property line of his house, and if it shows up again, he's going to photo it and send it to me. Well, that night it showed up, and he photoed it, and he sent it to me that night. It was around 10 o'clock, and I was in bed, so I didn't see it. I didn't see it for a couple days. And when I popped it open and I saw the photo, I saw it, and like 5 minutes after seeing it, I go to my front door to have a cigarette. I was smoking back then. I'm not smoking now, but I went to my door to have a cigarette, and there in front of Simpson's Rest sits that same cloud formation, very similar cloud formation. And I'm putting them up just for you to see them, and I just want you to, I'm trying to show you why I believe what I believe, because these things aren't coincidences. All right. And then this is like 6 months ago. I'm helping a friend at a storage facility get some stuff out of storage in Raton, New Mexico. And I'm in the storage facility, or in the storage bin with my friend, helping her get her stuff out. And while we were talking, my ear started ringing. I mean, really ringing hard. And that's a very big sign. I get that when Fitz is close. My ears start ringing. So I went, oh, man, yeah, Fitz is close. They're out watching me. Hold on a second. And I went outside, and the wind was kind of blowing pretty good. And I go out and I start looking, and it was clear sky, clear. But off in the distance sits this little cloud. And my friend came out, and I said, see that cloud? See that? And she's looking at it. I said, that's them. And I said, let me get a photo real quick before it comes, because in a second it's going to be gone. And the wind was blowing really hard, too. And that cloud was not moving. It was just staying still. And I photoed it. And my friend, just after I got done saying, I got the photo before it's gone, I photoed it, and she looked at me, and when she looked back, that cloud was gone. And man, she about freaked out. She was like, that's not a normal cloud. I said, no, it wasn't. That was them. I don't know how they do it, but that's them. And you can believe it or not. You can look at these photos and say, Greg, you're looking at clouds. But man, it's the context. It's how it's being presented. It's when they appear. It's when they appear. I'm reading 2 Chronicles 6:1, and Solomon said, God said he would dwell in a dark cloud, and then I see that cloud. So, yeah, they can, and we know that Fitz comes in looking like a low-lying cloud. Their ship's about a 1/4 mile in length, and it comes in looking like a low-lying cloud. And so they can manipulate clouds, and believe it or not, but it's true. And you can ask them to show up, and they will, but you got to believe that they're there, and it's not a joke. So I hope you like it. I hope you like this last video. Not much of a video, more of an audio, but it's a video of an audio. So thanks for listening, and take care.